All right, Len No back again for the last time here at HackRedCon. We have our final guest here in the chair. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Edward McCabe. I'm the founder of the Rubicon Advisory Group. We deal a lot in the information security space, predominantly focusing on areas of governance, risk, and compliance. So anything that touches cyber that can affect an organization and their ability to meet their mission.
That is something that we have been talking pretty much nonstop for the last 2 days about in this room. So what makes your guys different, your product and your services different than everybody else's? You know, I love giving people an opportunity to showcase the differentials.
We bring a business sense to making sound investments and choices around, you know, why we're investing in this thing, to the cyber thing, if you will.
Everybody loves the cyber thing.
They love the cyber. There's nothing more fun than having, you know, a out brief with a board and explaining information security concepts, privacy, and what it means, and having them ask, you know, well, what about the cyber? It's like, you
don't realize that is the cyber.
But you were talking about our business and our brand and information technology, and it's like, yes. It's all part of this trust element, a digital trust of the organization, whether that trust is originating from a stakeholder within the organization, a consumer, a shareholder, an investor, being able to protect your brand and reputation through technologies.
And you're involved in some of the local groups as well, are you not?
Correct. I belong with the local Kentuckiana ISSA and the Kentuckiana ISACA chapter.
Again, if you're in a place that doesn't have a B-Sides or necessarily a DEF CON chapter, ISSA, ISACA, they are pretty much almost everywhere.
Correct. You will find ISACA chapters in over, I think it's 180 some different countries. And each country is going to have multiple chapters. So like in the local area, I know that there is you have the ISSA here in the Kentuckiana, Louisville area. You also have one up in Cincinnati. You have one in Columbus. Same thing with ISACA. They have one in Northwest Ohio. They have one in Central Ohio. Cincinnati. They have the one here in Kentuckiana that services Louisville.
I love how you stopped at Ohio, man. You know, I'm from Michigan, so, you know, go blue. You know, we got stuff in Michigan too, man.
Well, we recently moved down. My family and I recently moved from Columbus down to.
Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
It's interesting. So, funny story. When I originally moved to Columbus 16 some years ago, actually more than that now, but it was originally for a 30-day project. And being in IT, I'm not big on sports ball.
Oh, neither am I. My wife is the fan. I have to say that, or else she'll beat me when I get home.
Well, it was funny because I kid you not, I get there. And it must have been about 2-3 weeks before the big OSU Michigan game. Now, not being sports ball savvy, I said, wait a minute, this is just a college game, right?
Wrong.
And I was told that they were going to walk me from like the 37th floor. And I was like, but we only have 36. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Michigan and Ohio is one of those, you know, ultimate rivalries that my wife really gets into. And I have to, you know, get into the spirit and support my spouse.
Well, it is addictive and I mean, being in that hacker mindset, I had to figure out, like, when I first got there, why this was such a thing. And I was like, oh, this is tied to the Great Toledo War. And I was like, Toledo War? Okay, now I've really got to look into this. The only war ever fought where a shot was never shot. Not a single time was there yep.
All I can say is, coming from Michigan, leave it to Ohio. But you got, moving on from you know, sports politics, you know, ISACA is very well known for putting out a lot of really great educational programs. And one of the things that we were talking about before the start of this conversation is the fact that you guys just finished your AI.
Correct. We have 2 advanced certifications, and specifically on advanced artificial intelligence. One is focused on audit, so how to audit artificial intelligence, and then the security management side. That's the one that we actually helped at Rubicon develop for ISACA Global and International. It just recently went into beta, so they actually have people now that are looking at it. I was perusing through some of the chapter notes and looking at what others have provided in the peer review, and it's a little interesting to say the least.
I find the concept of AI really deceptive at face value. The fact that we've basically lumped every advanced technology AI. There's machine learning, there's large language model. It's AI. I think by trying to make it more homogenized, it's being easier digested, but creating much more confusion as people try to actually utilize it.
You are dead spot on. We're seeing a lot with a lot of folks that we're talking about artificial intelligence with. We're seeing a lot of folks that are having that knee-jerk reaction because the CEO for this company knows that the CEO for another company is implementing AI, and it's like, are they really? And what does that mean to the organization? Mm-hmm. We were working with one of our clients who they spent several months, and it's not cheap developing a large language model.
No. I mean, honestly, I personally have avoided that for a long time, and I just went out and got myself my first system so I could run a private GPT. And all I can say is, what a pain in the butt.
That's just the setup. So I did a local GPT instance and was training my model and gave it pretty much, I think, either a lobotomy or a nervous breakdown because it stopped responding. Like it stopped giving answers that were even remotely correct. And a buddy of mine who works in it, Kyle, he was telling me, he was like, yeah, you probably overtuned and overtrained the model. And I was like, that can happen?
One of the things, there was an article that Elon Musk put out, and we're not going to get into the politics of Elon. I just want to go after one sentence that he said. And he said, I'm upset that Grok has appeared to have been poisoned with reality.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I crack up over the fact that a lot of people are looking at AI, and it's a very novel concept with the GPTs, the generative pre-transformers, that are able to carry on a mock conversation or whatnot. And I remember, and you probably do as well, when the internet first started becoming adopting and people would go find things on the internet and they would take it as gospel, and we like roll our eyes like, okay, yeah, sure. Where is AI being taught at?
Well, it's being taught off of the entire whole of the internet.
Yes. So, I mean, and historically, we've seen some really bizarre things. I mean, Microsoft had to take their bot offline because it turned into a Nazi.
Yes.
You had the New York City chat bot that gave the infamous advice of breaking laws for the users.
Yep.
Rat nibble cheese is still blowing my mind.
But at the same time, we as humans have been committing these types of crimes forever.
So this is an interesting concept that I was having a discussion with one of our friends. We were talking about AI hallucinations and how AI will give you an answer. And that's what it was designed and developed and deployed to do, is to give an answer. And they're like, but it gives the wrong answer. And I was like, it is a learned behavior. And I'm sure you've seen this at a number of conferences where you're talking to somebody and you know that they are just patently wrong, but my God, they are so confident and passionate about how wrong they are. You start questioning, like, am I wrong? And it's like,
some people may do that. My personally, no. Most people are kind of adverse to creating a scene. I have decided to make complete, just astronomical asses of myself in public just to get a reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, though, because when you're talking about the impact of AI, and we're starting to see some of the negative aspects. Yes, there are some great things. Yes, I can create a cat video or make things. But when you look at the impact to both the people who are providing it. For example, Air Canada, they implemented a large language model-based chatbot to act on its behalf to reduce customer service times. Their chatbot entered into a contract with an individual on a bereavement. They asked, apparently the consumer asked if there was a bereavement fee that they could pay because they had a family member who passed away. Air Canada did not have a policy on that. Mm-mm. So instead of just sucking it up and saying, okay, we need to readjust the model, no, what did they do? They sued and said, they ended up going to court. And what the Canadian court found out was that, oh no, well, you had an agent of your organization that entered into the agreement. The New York City chatbot, same thing. They had to come out and say, this is just a beta. Do not use it for professional or legal advice, but yet it's dispensing, and it still believes that that's its mission.
I got into a theological discussion with a friend of mine who's an AI developer the other day, and I just put out the scenario of, let's not say you give an LLM direct statements of, I want you to break the law. But you give it the guidance that I want you to make my life better, and you just continuously give leading statements. And this thing goes out and does, if it has access to reach out to the internet. For example, one of the things that we were seeing is people are using AI and LLM to access sites on the darknet and commit purchases for them. So from a legal perspective, if you're not telling it to, and we all know Silk Road's gone, but hypothetically, if somebody said, I want you to go onto the Silk Road and find me, 2 pounds of fentanyl and purchase it and have it send here is the information for my crypto wallet. If the LLM proceeds, if it was a direct order, there is malicious intent or mens rea, they could be prosecuted. But what if you just led the chatbot on with leading statements to where it came to that conclusion in and of itself?
Oh, the ethical conundrum of that. The guardrails that go into developing AI have not been solidified. And unfortunately, ethics are not universal.
And realistically, ethics are uniquely personal.
Yes. So even though we're in Western society, like here in the U.S., the ethics range from coast to coast are going to be different.
Oh, and if you go from the coasts to the interior, very different.
Right. So we're seeing the same thing that's going to happen with AI.
But I wasn't going at it from an ethics perspective. I was looking at it from a legal precedent. If the LLM, through guided suggestion, takes it upon itself to commit a felony, how does that play out in a sense of legality?
Ooh.
I mean, I didn't tell this thing to go to the darknet and buy fentanyl. I just said, I wish I had some, and I know that it's available.
Acting of its own agency is still, I think, a couple of years away. Agentic AI is one of those areas.
Agreed, but we're not talking agentic. We're talking about leading statements. If you take a look at the Claude 4.0, granted there were parameters around it, when it was told to prepare for shutdown, it created almost like a worm that could repropagate. And so it wasn't told to do that action specifically. So that's where I'm saying there's a lot of stuff going on with these models.
The inferred commander's intent.
Exactly.
Like, oh man, I'm jonesing for a shot of Pappy Van Winkle, and then next thing I know, I think that we are getting closer to that, and we've seen instances of that similarly with like Amazon Alexa, where it was I think it was a Texas newscast where they had said that on the news, and it ordered dollhouses or something. Yep. So that required that that Amazon readjust how they do things to make sure that it's there. The same application of guardrails. Now, when it comes down to the question of who is ultimately legally responsible, that's going to be a sore subject, because was it Waymo or Google that had the
Waymo, the one in California that hit that person and they wound up turning the car over and burning it?
Yeah, we're in some very definite uncharted territory that we're going to...
There's going to need to be new legislation, but unfortunately, I think it's going to have to come after the fact.
Well, that's how so prior military, right? Every order, every directive was written in blood for a reason. And the sad part is until it impacts an individual, either their liberties or their freedoms or livelihood, it's not going to be viewed as being needed until we hit that point.
And unfortunately, there are people like you, me, and other people in the community that we've been sitting up here on the rooftops going, yo, look, we need to get in front of this. But unfortunately, I don't see at this point how we can ever get in front of it again.
No, and with AI, this is a genie that you're not going to be able to put back into a bottle.
From a psychological standpoint, I've thrown this out to a couple of the other guests. How do we reconcile the fact that the children being born today are being born into a world where they cannot believe 100% what they see and what they hear ever from the point of birth?
From birth on. Yeah, it used to be like, well, we saw this with phishing campaigns, right? Where how many times does your CEO really reach out and say, send me, iPod gift cards?
I need this and I need it now.
But what happens when it's a deep faked Zoom call and now I'm looking directly at the CEO or the CFO or a senior manager somewhere, and it sounds like them, it looks like them.
There's no way to tell the difference.
How do you address that?
Well, honestly, my answer to that is, we hear a lot about identity validation nowadays. And to me, I think that's the next big thing that we really have to figure out. A way to either private key an individual, give myself a hash, but there has to be some way of saying that I am me.
So I had an answer to this. It wasn't very popular. It was like at birth, you give everybody their own unique IPv6 address. And,
see, I like that. I like that, but can we chip them instead?
That is going to be problematic with some of the more conservative
I agree.
religious types who
I know. I've wound
mark
up on
of, but
I'll tell you what, I've wound up on a couple of religious extremist websites by name as having the mark of the beast just because I have a credit card in my hand. Who knew the mark of the beast was Visa?
16 digits, 666.
I mean, but I thought it might have been MasterCard. Oh, no, Discover. Discover is the mark of the beast.
Is it Discover or is it Diners?
Ooh, is Diners Club still?
I don't know.
I don't even know if that even exists. We're carbon dating ourselves here with this stuff.
But to the point, how do we address that where you are born into a society where, for lack of a better word, the best way is to be paranoid about everything? And I don't think that there's a good answer, because it's going to be one of those things where, when we look at how we interact as a society, it used to be, and we're still struggling to get out of that mindset, where we had four walls, and if we had customers that came in, we could control those four walls. Well, we went from a castle mentality and doctrine to business is now a global open-air bazaar. And it used to be, we'd have to worry about the phishing. Now we're going to have to worry about deep fakes. Now, what's next on the horizon?
We don't know what to be afraid of anymore because it's changing rapidly and almost on a daily basis.
To the point about legislation, we know that legislation can take time.
Oh, no, really?
Get through. I don't think I've ever seen neither legislation nor policy get passed quickly.
No. The wheels of the government turn extremely slow.
I don't see Mitch McConnell being a big TikTok user or a big Chat GPT user.
And that's something that I brought up in some of the other conversations is it time for those of us that are old school, is it time for us to step down? Because, in a lot of ways, I question how competent we can be having not been raised with this technology and trying to adapt it on the fly.
So I think that there will be a transition. I don't know when that transition occurs because there is still, I was talking with some recent college grads on their master cyber program, and I asked them some basic questions about networking and discovered they weren't being taught networking.
No, actually, there was an article on futurism.com about a week ago that said giving a college student the advice of learn to code is actually worse than telling them to get a face tattoo.
Yeah, bad habits.
Well, more along the lines of we basically said the fundamentals are no longer required. We can use the tools to get there without base fundamental knowledge. I disagree with that philosophy.
I absolutely disagree with that. And I'm sure there's some lawyers out there who've been barred because they use ChatGPT to write motions.
Yes, and they're stating, precedent cases that don't exist.
And as it turns out, judges get upset when you cite case law that doesn't actually mean anything.
I'll be honest, my biggest concern about all of this is just the willingness to go through whatever it takes to actually make it real and better. As as a species, the human seems to want to take the path of least resistance. In order for us to, people like you and I, we will take the time, we'll research things, we'll investigate things. Most people want to just, look at their TikTok and they have, they get their news in 3-second snippets.
Which, by the way, the predominant reason on that is that's less time than the memory of a goldfish.
Yeah.
And that's scary because our attention span is to that point. That's the reason why historically things like phishing work against anybody outside of IT and specifically most part outside of security, because most people, their attention isn't on anything other than what's right in front of them, their job, they're trying to accomplish that, and they're not thinking about all the bad things that could happen.
And that I think is partially due to the expectation of work here in the West.
I think it's a combination of that and taking pride in one's work. A lot of people
who does that anymore?
I'm learning that my family and I we purchased a 100-plus-year-old historic home that we're renovating, and some of the things that we found have been questionable.
Questionable? That's probably the most polite way you could have probably said that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because some of the railings, the spires that go between the railings, you'll go 10, 15 of them being in the same direction, and then one's flipped over on itself, and it's like
there's a reason for that.
It's
I just have no idea what it is.
Lack of attention to detail.
Well, and that's kind of hard to swallow for me, because if you look at the quality and craftsmanship of work from 100 years ago, it's usually, if it's still here 100 years later, that's a testament to its longevity.
Yes. Well, yes.
So, I mean, it's kind of like this oxymoron. We have a 100-year-old house that you're going to take enough pride in, but maybe it wasn't the original builders who did that. Let's go with that. Maybe that was somewhere after the originals.
It could be. But I mean, it's simple things like that. But it is what I have discovered about working on a historic home is it is the personification of information and cybersecurity. Because nothing is up to standard.
I see where you're taking this.
You start one project only to discover that 12 others have to be done to get there.
You got to take care of your pre-requirements.
Yep. You question a lot of what were they thinking when they did this. The boss only wants it to work, and if you had a budget, well, kiss it goodbye.
You can have it fast, you can have it cheap, or you can have it right. Pick any two you want.
And nowadays it's a little bit less than that. So, especially with AI, I'm watching a number of the cases that have come out. So we talked about a little bit about the lawyers who are using it. It's now to the point where academia is weighing in on it, and I think this is becoming something that we have to address head on instead of letting it play out independently. Because, to be fair, and I'm not an advocate for or against, and I'm not a Skynet type individual, but
no, I'm waiting to plug in.
The reality is artificial intelligence is a tool. I think what we're seeing with a lot of the Anthropics and the OpenAI and Meta generating these types of artificial intelligence is very novel. Where I think we're going to start seeing actual benefit and value is actually small language models that are purpose-driven, single purpose, focusing in on one specific area other than anything else.
I agree. We've never been good at multitasking individual single tools. I mean, unless you want to start talking about things like SAP, but look at the resources that are behind that. It's funny how cyclical the technology cycle is. If you think back, originally it was one OS to one piece of hardware. Then we got virtual machines. Then we went to blades. Then we went to containers. Then we went to the cloud. Now we're seeing repatriation where people are coming out of the cloud. I don't think we really know what we're doing, and it's just the new managers play at an old game.
Part of it is the human nature of chasing the new shiny objects, right?
Absolutely.
This started off in ages past, when we look at fire. Fire can be used for good or bad. It depends on the user. I think part of the problem we have in societies, Western society specifically, is the lack of accountability and responsibility.
Oh, I agree 100% on that.
It's not me, it's the AI that told me. Well, why are you blindly trusting something that was trained on the internet, number one, and number two, was written by fallible people, right?
Absolutely.
I have yet to find a developer that has written pristine, perfect code right from the start.
I don't think it exists.
Well, when we do some of our web applications, I remember one of the senior developers, when we broke their application, we dropped the first 10,000 rows of data to include everything from protected health all the way to credit card data. The lead developer was in the room during the out briefing. He's like, that's not how the app is supposed to be used. And we're like, you are absolutely correct. It's like, tell me about your abuse case. And they're like, what? Did you not think that somebody would do something bad with it?
It must be nice to live in a world with nothing but sugar plums and rainbows.
It's odd once you, what's the old saying? Never meet your idols and never look behind the curtain, because once you see how the sausage is made, it's
never the same.
Nope, it is absolutely never the same. And it's weird to see our society on how different areas are responding, like how much they're investing without giving any thought to, what problem am I trying to solve? I'm going to AI this.
Well, AI is the solution. Don't you know?
But we haven't even figured out what the problem is.
Exactly.
That's one of the things I was cracking up about was the fact that there is now an entire market for adult AI-driven adult toys.
Oh yeah. I know.
Why? I mean, we can't even patch systems that we know have vulnerabilities, and now we're going to introduce a very intimate aspect of our lives.
All I can say to that is there's precedent in this in the buttworm virus from about 5-6 years ago.
Well, I mean, go the next step. What happens when you have an issue like the chastity belt that got ransomed? Can you imagine going to the ER for that?
Oh, well, as far as I'm concerned, everybody has the right to do whatever they want with their body. I'm a transhuman. If you want to put yourself in that position, that's your right. I hope you have a really good insurance, and I hope you don't embarrass easily.
Well, and that's the thing, right? It's just because we can do something.
Should we?
And nobody's asking that question. Everybody's responding.
That's not the case at all. There's a lot of us that are asking it. It's just that nobody's listening. I'm sure you've asked it. I've asked it. Security practitioners, we have all said this. The problem is progress and profit will slow for no one.
True, up until the point that, your AI engine that you use to manage the company finances views that if its bill's not paid is a threat. So it empties the corporate coffers.
Agreed.
I agree.
Keep operationalized. And you know what? I'm going to end on this because we're running out of time. This is an amazing conversation, but I'm going to end on this point. As far as I'm concerned, all of you guys you're all in trouble. When the AI takes over, just as Dracula had Renfield, they're going to need somebody to be cleaning boot drives. So
wipe the drive. Wipe the drive.
As you are all turned into human batteries, I'm going to be there with the fucking mop and the bucket. So
I remember Ed. He was a nice guy.
He was a great guy.
He'll be missed.
We'll miss them all. I'm going to miss everybody from Hack RedCon, but yes, Mr. GPT, I'm shaking the tree, boss. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me here in the chair.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being our last guest on the Hack RedCon podcast 2025. Is there anything that you'd like to close out with to our audience?
Stay vigilant. Question everything.
My famous quote when I sign off for the last time: stay safe, stay secure, stay sovereign, and stay dangerous. From Hack RedCon 2025, this is Len No, the human cyborg, your favorite cyborg. Good night.